Welcome lettering lovers, back once again with the quill behaviour. Yes, you heard me, ye oldie lettering pun. Now in this video what we're going to be doing is we're going to be looking at taking the lettered files from Illustrator and the artwork and combining them in Adobe Indesign in order to create a print ready PDF. Now sending your comic to print, it can be a nervous time, so you want to make sure that everything's right, and if you follow these instructions this will give you a gorgeous print ready PDF that won't come out fuzzy and you can sleep better at night. So here we are in Illustrator and I have here my page of finished lettered art. Okay, so the text is still editable and I've got everything in layers and all in good order. Now what I need to do is make this page letters only, as I'll be using a different file for the actual artwork when it comes to placing items in InDesign. So the first thing I can do is to remove the art. So if you just hide that, and that being hidden, it won't export when I export this file at the end. And I'm just going to hide my guides for now, just to make it a little neater. So as you can see, text is still editable. And the first step, and this is the most important step when making print ready files, is that you need to convert the type into shapes. Right, and we do this because if I send this file to the printers with editable text, Illustrator wants this text to remain editable. So what it will do, if the person who receives this file from me doesn't have this font installed on their computer, Illustrator will replace it with another font. Can you imagine, ladies and gentlemen, if you sent your files to your beautifully lettered comic to print and when it came back from the printers the font had been converted into something like Comic Sans? Yeah, that would be a disaster. So what we have to do is make all of this text uneditable by converting it into vector shapes. And to do that, it's pretty simple. All you need to do is select all, and that will select everything on the page, which is fine. And if you come up here and click type and then create outlines, okay, that makes all the text uneditable because it is no longer individual editable words, it is now individual editable shapes, little vector shapes, which means it can be printed at high quality no matter what size it is, and no one will be able to edit the font once this is done, and you can be sure that it's going to be the right font that you have chosen. So just a little side note, I'm just going to step back, Control and Z, one step back, make it all editable again. I just want to show you this because this is important during the process. If I grab this bit of text here, if I were to lock this, then do a select all, as you can see it's not going to select the locked bit of text. So if I do type create outlines, that's going to stay. If we unlock it as editable text, look, so I can get in there and still change it. So what you need to do is make sure that you don't have any locked layers when you're doing this process. So as you can see, this one's locked here. I'm just going to show to make sure everything is unlocked. Come up over to Object and click Unlock All, and you see it is removed. Now it's not going to unlock the stuff that you can't see because it's not part of the page. It can't be seen at the moment, so don't worry about that. But now that it's unlocked, it means we can do a select all and then convert that to outlines. Now you can just double check your locked file, locked layers. If you just come over to object, as you can see, that's clickable there. If there's nothing locked, unlock all is grayed out. So basically what you need to do, rather than having to actually physically click that, you just have a look, see if it's grayed out, then you know it's all done. So that's fine. So again, I'm going to select all, type, create outlines. And now we know that all our text is safe and secure, and it's going to print the way that we want it. The next important step is to make sure we have overprint set correctly. Now I've created another file here. Well, I'm using another file here just to show you what overprint is all about. So this is a page from ZXT, Zombie Extermination Team. Yeah. And what I've got here is a nice bit of a bubble going on. Now, when you think of a printing press, which is C, M, Y and K, as we all know, these colours are laid down individually. So for each of those letters, there is a plate or an arm or a board that prints the C, prints the M, prints the Y and prints the K. These are massive printing machines that are hammering away really quickly, printing loads of stuff. Now there's always a potential with this machinery that the print isn't going to be exactly perfect. There is a chance that some of these print plates or arms might actually slip a little during this frenzied printing process. So what can happen is when we send this file to print, when we ship it off to the printing gods, the print will interpret this page as it looks right here. So if we zoom in some more, this black line, the printing press will assume that some black, or this line exists here. So what it won't do is bother to print the background underneath where this line is. So it won't print this artwork under where the line is because there's black there. It doesn't need to. But if the plates were to slip and say the the black plate slips ever so slightly, like so, if there's no overprint selected, when it slips, because it doesn't need to know what this background looks like, it will print nothing. So you will get these white halos appearing. So ideally, we don't want that to happen, obviously. So in order to fix that problem, we overprint the black. The clue is in the wording. We overprint the black on whatever is behind it. So it will remember that there's colour behind it when it prints the black over the top. So if there's any slip, it will still be printing what's underneath. And that is primarily why we choose overprint, because the printers, they can't be 100% trusted. That's all good and groovy. Another reason why you should make sure that all your text and lines for your bubbles are 100% black and overprinted is because for the text, we just scroll down to here, can you imagine there's these four printing presses? If you've got 100% black text, it's just black. It's just printing the black. That's all it's print. It's one layer is all it's going to do. Completely 100% black. So if it slips, it doesn't matter, because it's just going to be, it might look a little weird in the bubble, but it's still going to be exactly how it's supposed to be laid out. Now, if you've got, say, text that is 20% cyan, 20% magenta, 20% yellow, and 100% black, if the black slips, what could happen is you can get the other, basically a mishmash of the other layers underneath, and you get these halos, these coloured halos forming around the letters. This is a very exaggerated slip right here, but basically, if say the cyan arm or plate slipped, you could get these little halos underneath. That's why we eliminate the other three colours, the magenta, the cyan and the yellow. We eliminate them from our text, so if the text slips, it doesn't matter where it goes, it's always just going to print black, and that will result in a better looking comic with less visible errors. So that's that's overprinting for you. Now you might think, goodness me, that sounds complicated, but fortunately it isn't. Right, so when you're actually creating your lettering, you should have you should be using your colours like this. So you've got 100% black and 0 on everything else, as just discussed, in order to make sure it's 100% black and nothing else. Same with your lines as well. You want to make sure they're all 100% black too. And in order to turn it into overprint, basically just select everything as we do. Select all, and all you need to do, come over, press edit, come down to edit colors and click overprint black. OK, and that will give us the desired effect that we're looking for, where any 100% blacks are overprinted over the other colors, in order to ensure you get no weird halos or strange things going on. Okay, and another important thing we need to do is with regards to our guides. So I'm going to turn these guides back on and unlock. Now, as you can see, we've got 3 guides set up here. So we've got our safe area, which is obviously the area in which we want to make sure all of the lettering appears inside, so we know that it's nice and safe and isn't going to accidentally fall off the edge of the page or get too close to the edge of the page, so it will get lost in the fold or accidentally cut off or anything like that. That's what the safe area is there for. We've also got a bleed line here. Now this line is there to indicate the edge of the actual finished printed article. So when an item, when a comic goes to print, it doesn't print it to the precise size of the comic. It prints it to a larger size like this, which is shown by our bounding box here. So I'll return to this page to show you how it works. So if I have a scroll over to here, we've got our safe, we've got our our bleed line, and then we've got our bounding over here. Now the finished size of the comic is going to be along this line here. That is where, after it's printed, it will be cut by an actual cutting machine to that correct size here. Now the reason we've got this sort of overhang, which is known, this bit here is known as the bleed area. The reason we've got this overhang is because if the artwork at some point, the printing slips during the artwork, like so, you might end up with these white lines down the edge. Now if the artwork came to here, which is the actual size of the comic, if it slips, you'll get white lines down the edge of your comic. So because we've got this space to play with, if it slips, because the comic's going to be trimmed to this size, it doesn't matter that it slipped a little bit. Sure, it might mess up a few things elsewhere, but you won't get these horrible white lines appearing down the side of your comic. You know, there's quite a bit of distance there in which to play with, in which it can slip about. So that is what the bleed area is for. Right, returning to this page, what I'm going to do is, if I turn the art back on, now this one doesn't even hit the bleed edge, so it's not much to worry about. But yeah, it's better with an example shown in that one. But what I'm going to do now is turn off this box, the bleed line here, because I don't want to take that, for it is a red line after all. I don't want that printing on the end product, so I'm going to remove that. Now the bounding box I'm going to leave on the artwork. Now this makes life useful further on during the InDesign stage. Now with the bounding, I'm just going to set the opacity to 0. Well, I would do if the keyboard was working. There you go. And with it set to 0, the bounding box is still there. It's still an item on the page. It just can't be seen. So it won't be seen when it's printed. Now with the bounding box in place, what we're able to do is export the file. I'm just going to plug my keyboard in. What we're going to do, there we go, perfect. What we're going to do is export our lettering file with the bounding box included. So we've got this shape, this big shape that we know is the actual size of the page, which makes life easier when you're trying to put it in InDesign later. Without the bounding box, when we export, we get something this size, which makes it trickier to import into InDesign. We'll go into InDesign in a moment. The last stage obviously is in our checklist in our head. We have converted all the fonts to shapes. We have set overprint. We have our bounding box on, so we're ready to export this. We're ready to export this. Select all and take this on to the next level. So for this, simply go up to File and Save As. You can either save this as an Illustrator file or an EPS file. I do Illustrator just because I do, but EPS is just as fine. And I'm going to save that. Now you want to make sure you don't overwrite this artwork on top of your original, as this is now uneditable and you don't want to destroy all your hard work by overwriting your editable files should any further changes come along later on. So I'm just going to save that. And there we go. We're now ready to take this file into InDesign.